Hey everyone, it's Jared again for part 2 of the Necron Annihilation Barge. Here you're going to be seeing me use a Pigma Micron pen. It's a 005 size. You can get these at craft stores like Michael's, for example. Here I am trying to show you the size on the end of the pen. I'm failing miserably. But yeah, it's a .005, and I find that that fits perfectly into the little sort of etched detailing that GW does on a lot of their vehicle models. This is especially useful for Tau. I really found it very good for outlining panels on the Tau ships. I'm not sure about the upcoming ones this year, but yeah, it works really well. So it works equally well here. So here I am. You just basically draw in the grooves. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, and you'll see me using my fingers to wipe off mistakes frequently. You'll see me doing that both with the pen and with some of the other paints I'm going to be using. I do it constantly when I make mistakes, and then I go back and clean stuff up later if I need to. But if you act quickly enough, usually you can get it cleaned off before you really have a permanent issue. While you're watching this, I'll just explain a little bit more about my amateur video creation here. At times I'm going to speed the video up to kind of move things along, or not show like the entire process of one of the steps because it just takes forever. I think the video was well over an hour at one point, and I decided I needed to chop down some of that stuff. The other thing is I don't have any music because everything I keep adding just sounds really silly to me, so I'm going to keep working on that. Here I've got some bolt gun on the palette. I use, by the way, I use ceramic tiles from Home Depot. You can buy big boxes of them pretty cheap, and they make great palettes. And what I'm doing is just painting in slightly thinned down bolt gun into some of the panels between the creases between the panels. Sorry, you have to excuse me. I have a bit of a cold, and it's like 1:30 in the morning. Painting in details like between the panels, and I painted in things like the Necrons joints and things like that. There wasn't a lot of bolt gun on this particular ship anyway. So here's me being fairly lazy, using a large dry brush to do the edging with P3 Menoth highlight. You can actually do this pretty easily. I mean, if as long as you take a lot of the paint off the brush, and here quite often on the edges I'm using the side of the brush, which is something you can do. You also can do with a smaller brush, but I don't know, I just found it easier to just do it this way in this particular instance. Yeah, I'm just gonna lay down some edging, give it a little bit of contrast and definition. We'll do this on the panels and all the major edges, and to the Necrons themselves who are piloting the vehicle. I'll let you enjoy this for a moment. The other thing I was going to mention about this video, you're taking a learning journey with me about how to make these things, and I apologize, but quite often I'm almost completely off the frame painting whatever I'm painting, or my hand is totally in the way and you're not getting a good look at it. So I don't know, I'm going to figure this out, but just bear with me. Unfortunately, I'm going back to work Monday, and it's pretty crazy right now. We're shipping a new game soon, Mass Effect 3 actually, and that's going to be a lot of hours, so I don't know when my next video is going to be, but hopefully you'll find this one useful regardless. So that step's done, and now I'm adding some Devlin mud, and because Devlin mud can go on a little bit thick and kind of stain more than I wanted to in this case, I'm adding some of this Pledge Future acrylic floor wash, and I think you can get that in a lot of different supermarkets and grocery stores. Really, that's just going to further reduce the surface tension and kind of make it even more likely to fill into the creases and not leave anything on the surface. I find with Devlin mud, which I love, by the way, I love Devlin mud, but anyway, if I was applying it just pure on some of these sort of bone surfaces, it kind of really will tint it a fair bit more than I want it to. And this is a good example of me completely blowing it on the camera and not letting you see what I'm doing. But basically, I'm painting that wash just into primarily the drivers, giving some definition to their shoulder plates and to their rib cages and things like that. The rest of the ship, I pretty much left. I didn't do the Devlin wash on the rest of the ship, I don't think. Geez, without music, this is a really quiet video. I gotta find something. So yeah, just adding a little bit of details around that base part, although frankly, when the vehicle's done, the gun mount's going to cover most of that up anyway. Okay, awesome transition. So that has now, here's what I'm doing here is I've taken some mithril silver and a small dry brush, and I'm really lightly dry brushing the silver over the bolt gun. And this step is actually a pre-step to what I'm going to be doing is applying a kind of a real staining wash to the bolt gun to give it kind of a tarnish look. And what I do here is I sort of pre-highlight so that the highlight shows through the wash and kind of creates, you know, some natural bright spots without without kind of being too overt about it. I don't know if there's a word for it when you do that, but basically highlighting before I covered it with something else, so that almost like, you know, when you do zenithal or zenithal highlighting. This is my magic tarnish wash. That's what, here we go. I can't even open the lid because it's dried shut so bad. That's how long I've had it. There. So it has a Nurgle symbol on the lid because I used to use it to tarnish Nurgle armor. But basically, if I can try to remember what the heck's in it, I'm pretty sure it's DD's Magic Wash, which is from the War Store. And I've added to that bits of green ink, some yellow ink, and some sepia ink until I get this really nice kind of like almost green, almost yellow kind of tarnished stain. And it's I call it a stain because with the inks, they're less of a wash. They certainly will change the color of the surface you're working on. And I really like doing this with the metals on the Necrons because I don't want them to have nice shiny metal, but I didn't want to cover the metal in rust either, so I wanted to have sort of an aged look to it. And so here what I'm doing is just painting that tarnish glaze, I guess that's the right word for it, it's a glaze, onto all the bolt gun surfaces. And this is why I did that highlight with the mithril, so that in places it will appear brighter, but you won't really be able to see where the mithril silver kind of diverges from the bolt gun. You can put it on pretty thick. Here you can see I'm using the wicking action, or the capillary action of the brush, I believe they call it, to, you know, soak up any puddles or anything like that. And what will happen is it'll go on looking a little streaky at times, but ultimately when it's dry, it's going to have a nice smooth look to it and look really cool, in my opinion. So I do that to all the bolt gun on the ship, and now I'll probably do it. I believe I sped this up, but basically I'm going to do that to the main guns as well, pretty much all over. I'm not too careful. I just cover every surface of bolt gun with this tarnish glaze. that step's done. I believe what I do here is I ended up using a blow dryer to dry that step, so we can move ahead. Or did I? What the heck am I doing here? Oh, same thing. I thought I did this already. Okay. Basically right now I'm just tarnishing the metal parts showing on the Necron pilots. Alright, that step's done. Once again, trying to open a bottle. This is basically just straight chainmail chainmail from GW. And now that the aforementioned blow dry is done and I've dried off that wash really quick, I'm going to go over all of it again with like a really light dry brush with the chainmail. That prevents like this tarnished metal sections from coming off too you know, too monotone, like just kind of like one big green lump of metal, and it helps pull out some of the edging and details. You don't want to overdo it and kind of obliterate the tarnishing you already applied, so I do it pretty lightly and mostly catch edges and stuff like that. But you can also get some pretty cool effects on the flat surfaces where you get kind of like brighter streaking and stuff that looks like scratches and things like that, so it works out pretty well. And again, tabletop quality, just for gaming. It's not supposed to be perfect. I'm making kind of a mess at times, and that's fine. And I would have done that as well on all the metal surfaces on the main body of the barge. Here, taking a trick I learned out of the Forge World modeling book, although it's not, I don't think they amended it. Using a piece of torn sponge out of a blister pack. I'm using Charadon granite, however you say it. Just very, very lightly dabbing on paint chips on the edges. I'm not going for a super weathered look here. I don't want it too heavy because it can get kind of messy and silly looking if you overdo it. So really, really light, just around the main edges where wear would occur most likely. Now the flip side is you can also use this to kind of cover up mistakes. So anywhere that I've got like a little bolt gun where I shouldn't have or whatever, kind of like applying some chips in that area helps to kind of conceal that without having to go back with the original base color. And again, not trying to win a golden demon here. So I'm just going to apply this around various parts of the bone paneling. Gives it a nice kind of real world look, as opposed to being, you know, Necrons you wouldn't expect to look crystal, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Squeaky clean. Yeah. So you want them to look old and aged and a little worn. But in this case, I didn't want to go too crazy. Here you actually want the paint to be a little bit dry, so what I'm doing is I'm actually, and of course you can't see it, you're mostly watching my hand in this video, you really want the paint to be a little bit dry, so I'm going back to just where I kind of smeared it there. I'm not going back to the main drop, because if it's too wet, it's going to easily smear when you go to dab it on, or it'll kind of run or not create a nice crisp chip. Sounds like a snack. I just had some. Back to airbrushing for a sec. So we're gonna I'm taking some scorpion green here. Oh yeah, right there I'm just blasting out some of the excess cleaner that was still in there. Clean the tip. And I'm gonna just apply light coats of this green, scorpion green, to anywhere that I want to create like the sort of Necron power effect coming through on the weapons. You know, things like the orbs or the eyes of the Necrons and stuff like that. And you know, not exactly the greatest object source lighting you're ever going to see. It's pretty one-dimensional, but I don't know, I think it looks pretty cool, and it's good enough for my purposes. One thing with this scorpion green and any of the really light greens, I find I have a really hard time getting a nice consistency to this paint. I either don't get it to come out at all, or it comes out really thin and very quickly creates ripples or, you know, droplets. So quite often I have to kind of like rub it off with my finger real quick and then reapply. And this is like the worst camera work ever, because you can't even barely see what I'm doing, which I apologize. But just imagine the airbrush is shooting green paint at the gun. You can see the effect there. So I'm going to do that on the batteries, and I'm going to, or whatever they are, and I'm going to do that on the kind of like the cells along the barrels of the gun. In this case, just going slightly outside the boundary of what I'm painting to create that kind of glow where the light is kind of leaking onto surrounding surfaces, but certainly not trying to absolutely nail it. Really need to find some music. I apologize, you guys. This is dry toast. Fast forward through this if you want. You get the idea. I gotta try and talk in a deeper voice. I sound nasally on this thing when I play it back, which I hate. And I hope you guys have checked out Buy Painted, his videos, his tutorials. That's BUY Painted, with no space. I believe he's from Poland, has this amazing accent. Like, I could pretty much just watch his videos and drink beer and just be happy. He just has this really awesome way of doing these videos. Really enjoyable to listen to. Really cool voice for narrating it as well. So definitely check that out. He's got some great stuff. He's one of the few channels I subscribe to right now. And I kind of aspire to do videos his quality. So, I mean, clearly I have a long way to go. Step one might be to clean up my frickin' paint area. Anyway, you see what I'm doing there. I'm going to apply that same... Oh, by the way, I didn't edit this part very much because I wanted to sort of show what I was doing with the airbrush to completion, and then I promptly gave you a camera view right behind the airbrush so you can't actually see what the heck I'm doing when I spray. It's absolutely brutal. I'll fix it for next time. But light, you know, thin layers, especially with this green paint that runs is too runny, I find. So thin layers, building it up till you have a nice opacity. One thing I was pretty happy about is I actually managed to do a decent job of getting the glowing eyes, which are pretty small on those Necrons. I was just doing the front gem there, and then doing like the recessed panels on the balls. At the back. I didn't get to that part yet. These are the underslung gun battery thingies, ammo cells. Again, not trying to be too neat. Don't really care. Well, I care, but you know what I mean. I'm not, you know, I'm going for a standard that I can be happy with and that my opponent's going to find looking really cool every 2 years when I get to play a game of 40k and actually have time. can see I was screwing up considerably here and using my finger to fix the yeah, I was gonna make a joke here, but we'll keep it family friendly. There could be kids watching this trying to learn how to paint their Necrons. I don't want to make a dirty joke here about the balls. All right, it's a long step. Well, you guys get the idea. I'm going to cut it off here and jump to the next step. All right, next step. 50-50 mix of sunburst yellow and scorpion green. When I write plus air, it means I've got air medium in there, and this is one of my airbrush mixes. Now this stuff is really thin. The yellow and the green, the very light green, just are very translucent. So I'm adding just a drop of fairly thick P3 Manoth white highlight to this, because honestly I'm going for a pretty bright green anyway. And I want to thicken it up so it's not just kind of like running all over the place and not covering. Partly because I'm in a hurry. I wanted to finish this video today and render it overnight and get it up on YouTube, so you guys could be amazed by this borderline silent movie. So what I'm doing here is pretty simple. I'm just highlighting the scorpion green with this mix with the sunburst yellow to create some bright spots, primarily centered on the center of the cells, the center of the ammo cells, and some of the power nodes and things like that. Basically creating bright spots. If you squint, you can see it. Not being too neat here. I should almost have like a subtitle that says that through the whole video, but in this case, because it's like rippling Gauss power or whatever, I didn't need it to look perfect. I wanted it to look almost not uniform, because it's kind of crackling energy inside the gun. So, and my next step you'll see is designed to, and I mean it's not exactly an amazing step, but the next step is designed to pull that together a bit. By the way, I didn't even include it in the footage because it was so simple, but the two kind of power cables that are curving on either side of the bottom of the gun there are painted P3 coal black, and then a bit of a highlight with adding some troll blood highlight to that. But it was such a simple step I didn't bother. So here, Thraka green, just washing it onto the last two steps to kind of pull them together a little bit. Kind of make it a little more, I don't want to say blended because it's far from blending, but And what's nice is because that really bright green was so thin, even after I added that P3 paint, it stayed pretty thin. It was getting in kind of like some of the cracks of the cells and stuff, and the Thraka kind of fixes that, so you get the nice detailing coming back. And I go through and pretty much do this to all the areas that I've airbrushed and highlighted with these two colors. I wonder if this microphone's so good you heard me get an email just now. I'm talking into a blue, what is it called, snowball mic or something. I just bought it for this purpose. It's really good. Seems really good anyway. Doesn't make me sound more manly, but I think you're getting better quality. So yeah, adding Thraka green to the cells on the gun, I think it really, I'm getting ahead of this part, but adding it to the barrel tubes or whatever definitely made them look much nicer. Kind of blended in that brighter green that I applied to the tops. Like that. Look at that. Even you can see that in this video. I think usually you're supposed to have a closer look at the Mini when you film these and not you know, study my knuckles the whole time. Oh, I gotta get better at this. And hopefully paint some things that you guys want to hear about. I mean, I'm working on Necrons, trying to get something done because, like I said, work is about to get pretty crazy, but also those new vampire models are coming and they are shit hot, right? So I think they're going to distract me away from painting the Necrons, especially the what's it called, Mortis engine. That thing is awesome. So I might end up, who knows, maybe I'll do a video of that thing later. So yeah, I've added all the Thraka green, and you didn't see it here, but I went and blow dried it. Adding a hair dryer it's a pretty recent thing I did, and it really helps speed up the process. So now I just take a brush, and I just wanted to go back with that really bright green with the sunburst yellow, and just add that to you know, some of the, you know, the tops of the surfaces, or you know, the eyes on the Necrons and stuff like that, and make them pop out a little bit, some of the control panels and things like that. Not really a mandatory step, but I don't know, just wanted to add a little bit of that detail. Here I didn't go and do it on the barrels, I don't think, but I did it just in the center of the power cells at the back to give them that sort of glowing from the center. Okay, now this stuff is amazing. It's Vallejo Liquid Gold, I think it's called. It's an alcohol-based metallic paint. Here I'm using the copper, and I think I'm going to be highlighting that with the red gold. And to use this stuff, I'm using, in that little cup there, isopropyl alcohol 99%, I believe, to clean the brush, because you don't want to use water with this stuff. It just makes it'll be a disaster of clumping and mess. This stuff is fantastic. You have to kind of shake the bottle up a fair bit, or stir it or something. I'm not sure if I'm doing it right, but I'm shaking it. Just creates this beautiful, beautiful metallic finish. You know, I've always struggled, and I'm sure a lot of you have, with GW or Vallejo regular golds. They just, I don't know, man, they go on kind of clumpy or streaky or not great compared to, like, say, a bolt gun. Well, this is like bolt gun metal for golds, right? Like, it just goes on so nice. So here I skipped a step real quick. I actually washed that copper with some Devlin mud, and now I'm just highlighting the surfaces and edges, and look at that, I'm painting right off camera. Absolutely brutal. Anyway, I'm highlighting like the little Necron symbols. I'll give you a closer look at that. Look at that. I'm in sync with the video. Yeah, it looks great. And I got that idea of using that stuff from Buy Painted. So again, go watch his videos. So make pigments. I got this from local hobby store. It's kind of hard to find around here in Edmonton, so you can also, I think, order it from Cool Mini or not. This step is interesting. There's no science here. I'm literally taking a disposable brush, those little ones you can buy. I keep tons of them on hand, and I'm just smearing on rusty pigment in various splotches just to break up the uniformity of the bone color and just give it some visual interest. There's no, and frankly I'm using it to cover up some of the mistakes too, but I just think it looks cool. I mean, I'm not trying to simulate rust. I'm not trying to get it right. I'm not like trying to make it look realistic. I just want to, it's like dirt, it's age, whatever, staining. It's just old ship, right? So I kind of did this on my Imperial Fist, which some of you have seen on my website. I think that's probably the most popular army I've painted, where I literally just would airbrush little splotches of dark flesh all over the ship, or all over the vehicle when I was done. I just think it looks awesome. Absolutely no reason for those colors to be there, but just gives it a more interesting look to it. So anyway, I think I beat that to death, but just, you know, I'm not too worried. I know that when I apply the dull coat, it's going to screw up the pigments a bit. Don't care. It's going to leave the color. So next step, this is actually after dull coating the model. I didn't show you that part. This is, and it's completely, I'm trying to let you read it and you can't really. It's satin varnish. And what I'm doing is I want to just kind of add kind of a cool look to some of those green bits, as if they're like glassed in, or, you know, they're not quite metal, they're not quite, you know, just plain. They've got a bit of a slight sheen to them. I did this on my Tyranid carapaces in one of my other videos. I just think it looks really nice. It's not, you know, gloss can come off kind of toyish. I only use gloss on, let's say, gems, lenses, and very subtly, and maybe with guts and gore. But here the satin just gives the little power cells and things like that just that little extra bit of pop, that when someone's looking at the model, they get a little bit more of that visual interest I've been talking about. So that's satin varnish. And here's a wicked fast cut to the finished model, where I took some still photos. I think it looks pretty cool. Happy to have that in my army. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your patience with this video. Please check out my website, like the video if you liked it, and maybe be a subscriber. See you next time.